another thing I need to talk about is a boost gauge. So this is one by Auto Gauge. It's just the same brand I've been using for the rest of them pretty much, apart from the AM. Actually, I think I've got another different one. Whatever. It's good, not very expensive. Boost gauge. This is the kind of fitting instructions, if you can call them. And then all you really need to know is you need the black wire is the ground, red wire is 12 volts, and it's obviously switched. And this amber wire is just so you can change whether or not the actual colour that you have. So when you use nighttime and daytime, so just kind of whatever you want to do really. So what I'm going to do, grab it out of the box and show you what's in there. So straight away, something got lost in the description of this, because I've only got a amber wire, I've got no white wire. I've only really got the option to connect this one, so I'm going to end up with the amber scale all the time. So weird one, doesn't really matter. Right, okay, so here it is. I'll pick it open. It's actually a mechanical gauge, it's not going off a separate sensor. You're just feeding this pipe, which comes with the kit, straight in to the back of here. I might actually use some different pipe if I've got some, because I don't know if I like the sound of this. And then what else have you got? The little brackets to hold into the back of that adapter plate I've already got in my car, and you've got a T-piece as well. The good news is I've already got a gauge pod holder, and I'm going to remove the voltage gauge I've got because it's kind of less important than having a boost gauge, so I'll just run this instead. So then what I can do is I think I'm just going to make some bullet connectors for these. Others have probably seen this, but this is my collection of gauges at the moment. I've got oil pressure, oil temperature, wideband lambda, voltage, water temperature and fuel pressure. So I'm actually going to pop out this voltage one. So I've removed these two wires here. This is just to actually measure the voltage of the battery, so particularly this terminal here goes straight to the fuse box, which is also why I've removed the battery anyway, which makes sense when working on anything electrical in your car. So that's there like that, and then it's just these three wires here. And what I'm going to do is just snip them and get some bullets on there, and then put some bullet connectors on here. Right, so that's this set of wires removed, and these ones available to me to make bullets with. And then I can just use a little Barco. I've got 8mm, and undo those two nuts on the back of here. So you probably all know how to put bullet connectors on, but how I've been doing it, obviously you slide over your little insulator bit. I crimp this one leg down a bit, which is for the insulation, and then slide that over here, and you see it just grabs it a little bit. Okay, then I fold that leg down, fold the other leg down so the insulation's being held, and fold the bit where my thumb is down one side, then the other side to hold that on, and then slide the sheath back over it. And that's pretty simple. Put the male end of the bullet on, slide those bits over first, and these are a bit long now where the exposed bit of the wire is, so I'm going to cut them down a bit and then whack these bullets on. So that's all done. I'll just put some insulation around the wires to keep them together. Then I can just obviously plug them in there, but not before obviously feeding this gauge through to the spare pod now, and then attaching it with the brackets as the previous one was done. So that's the boost gauge in there. That's all the wires. The nice thing about these things is the sleeves kind of pull over, so you won't get any shorts. Now I'm just going to see if I can run this boost vacuum gauge line. I found some of this silicon line that I've had for ages, so I think that's going to work. I'm going to feed it through here, which I think is the old Speedo, a mechanical Speedo cable one. So that's going in there, and then I can just run it back down to here, port on the inlet manifold, which isn't being used. It was actually being blocked before. This brings the line just out left from where the clutch pedal is. And I can just lead it straight into the back there. So it's going to have to go through the center console here. There's the gauge back in here. You can see it's looks nice. I can't turn it on or anything. I'll show you what it looks like because I don't have any oil in the engine, so I'm not going to start it up or anything. And also my battery's flat as well. This is the box that the Hondata S300 came in. You can see it came with 2 of these cables. That's the part number for the cable, and it's the red wire I'm interested in. Because I need to connect that to the white wire from the Uergo, however you pronounce it, wideband Lambda. These are my notes for putting the wideband Lambda by AEM into the Hondata S300 ECU. You can see here it's wideband AEM. You need to put the ground to the same point as the ECU, so the intake manifold or the thermostat set to P0. In the back of here you've got this rotary switch on the gauge, and you can flick it to P0, which is air fuel ratio, or P1, which will just show you the lambda value, but I think it's on P0 now. And that will give you 0 volts will be 10 air fuel ratio, and 5 volts will be 20 air fuel ratio. And then on the back here, this is actually for the wideband sensor, and these are the ones we're interested in. So we have got red, which is 12 volts, black, which is ground, which we really want to make sure is the same as the ECU, which I'm going to check. White, which is one we're really interested in, which is 0 to 5 volts output, which will go to the red cable here, and I'll talk about it in a sec. And the blue is serial output, and that just means you can put an RS232 cable in it and data log it like that if you want, but I'm not going to bother about that. And then this cable I was going to talk about, this is the analog input cable. So I need to pop the cover off my S300 ECU, which actually isn't that, it's a different ECU. This is just a chip P28. So I'm going to pop the cover off, and then you see here these are all the channels. It's P0, P1, P2 and so on. So I'm just going to go for the first analog channel, which is 0 here, analog 0, and then that'll be that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to make an extension cable because it's actually going to be quite a long trip from there to my ECU. So that's what I'm going to do. First of all, I need to actually get the right cable, which is in here. And I just buried it down there into the insulation, so I'm just going to pluck it back out of there. Pop the 5 screws out, and that shows me the Hondata V3. Intense V3 because it's white. Red ones are, as in the red circuit boards, are V2s. Either way, you can see if I zoom in a bit, analog 0 to 5 volts, which is perfect, so what we want. Grounds on this side, so the black wires will be on the right, and the channel 0, which is the red wire, is on the left. So that's where it would be. And then obviously I need to feed the wire out, so I should just be able to feed the wire out through this little kind of hole there. This is what I mean. I'm going to have it something like that. Means I don't have to drill the case again or anything. Right, so what I was saying about checking if the ground from the actual AEM was good, I've just got a little bit of wire on there, just because these little probes are a bit fat to get in there, so I've just jammed that in there. Then what I've done is I've jammed this into, well, you can do 23 or 24. 23 is PGM1 power ground, which is black, and PG2 is power ground, which is also black. So as you look at it, I've actually put 24, that's number 24. So it's done a bit of a strange pattern. If I show you this, this is just from Therable.net. So that's as you look at the back of the connector. So you see 24 is like this, then 24 is at the bottom on the right hand side there. So I put my voltmeter or multimeter onto continuity, and if I connect these two together I get 0.002, and then if I place this in here, so I'm going from the power ground of the ECU to the ground on the AEM, I get 0.002. So what that means to me is that my ground is good and it's being shared between the AEM and the ECU. I'm going to do the same very quickly just by shoving this into 23. Now shoving the probe into 23, you can see it's on the upper deck, is also the same. So I've connected this white wire. Of course everything was soldered with the connector disconnected, this one, so none of the heat went into the gauge. Just used a white wire for ease, so I know what it is. And on the end of it I have placed a female bullet connector, and that's because you know, this will be throwing out 0 to 5 volts, and I don't want it to arc on anything. It's not really dangerous, it's more I just don't want it to happen if I disconnect it for whatever reason. So I'm going to place out here. The other side I've got channel 0, which is the red wire for the Hondata. I've just got the male bullet. So now I'm just going to tidy the whole thing back up here, and then take everything out the footwell and show you what the whole setup looks like. That's everything back in place there. You get the cable and you're just placing it on here like so. You can see I've looped all these cables around like that, so they can just snug up in there like so. I've got the red cable that's a bit loose, that's just going to go to here, and that is going to be my setup. So now I can just place this back on here like that. Put the 5 screws in, and then disconnect the rest of these plugs here and plug this new ECU in. So I took the old P28 chipped ECU out, and I've got the Hondata ECU in there now. You can see this is that cable I showed you for the wideband, which goes to the AEM for the 0 to 5 volt output, and then this is the cable USB, so you can control the S300. So before we talked about the 0 to 5 volts analog input into the ECU, and that is to the red wire, which is analog 0 channel on the Hondata S300 V3. And what I've done also is I've kind of coupled that wire so that can go in there, but also it needs to go into one of the other normal inputs into the ECU itself, and that's so you can select it for not just data logging, which is what that channel will do, but also as an input to the ECU for running the vehicle. And you've got 4 different options, although when you go through it you kind of haven't. So if this is from the actual help, Hondata help, which is actually very helpful. You've got D14, which is the O2 sensor, which is actually the one I'm going to have to use, which is this white and red on the bottom row, D14 there. I'm going to have to use that one. ELD D10, it's actually not connected, which is probably why it gives it errors in this ECU, because it's expecting an ELD where there's actually nothing connected to it. And that's D10. EGRL D12, again nothing there. That's only some models have that. And then finally B6 analog input 2, I don't have that. So the only one I actually do have is this one here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it, I'm going to snip that there. I'm going to put some connectors either side, and obviously the bullet for that in there, so I can connect straight into it. But then if for whatever reason I want to go back, I can just simply connect them together. So that's the nice thing about these bullets, is it makes it very easy. So just before I connect everything up, this is my setup. Got this, so if I want to go back to stock, I can just connect those two together. And if I want to run the wideband in, I've got an analog channel there, and also this channel here for the D14. Right, that's the full setup, and I can easily obviously still put the USB in like that. That doesn't get in the way of anything. That's my USB setup, and this is just out the way here. So now I've made that change to the wideband Lambda input wiring, I can go to properties. So we've got closed loop here, and I've got a wideband with a Lambda target, which is what I'm going to use. Obviously when I'm tuning, you can do closed loop disabled, because it's going to try and modify your fueling. Stock sensor, that's no longer in place. A voltage target and a Lambda target. I think it makes sense to have a Lambda target myself, but you can obviously choose to do whatever you want. And then if I go closed loop advanced, you can select which of the pins you're going to use, and I've obviously got D14O2 sensor, so that's there. Voltage offset, we'll have to find out about that, what kind of voltage offset there needs to be, because that depends on the difference between what the ECU thinks it's getting and your gauge. But I actually think that should be quite good now, because we've made sure that the grounds are the same between the ECU and the AEM ergo sensor wideband. So here's the Turbo Smart Ultra Gate 38. You see it's got one port blanked off on the top there, another port that's open to atmosphere, and the bottom port here. You use the top port if you're going to be using, say for example, a 3-port solenoid to run that for the control of the boost, but I'm actually just going off the 7 psi wastegate spring that's in there. So I'm just connected from the bottom to the there, which is in the front of the compressor housing. I've got this, which has got the Teflon tape around it, and a 90-degree fitting. Not to mention I need to Teflon tape this as well, which is the bottom port. So I haven't really got the right size Teflon tape, so I'm just putting it around the threads. I'm just going to use a blade to cut around where the nut is and then just pull off the excess. Just done that little port up with the 8mm spanner, placed it on down there. Another thing I've got to do is take out the wideband Lambda sensor from the DCAT and add it to the downpipe, because that's going to be my primary way of measuring Lambda and also controlling the car. So I'm just going to come in here, I can't do it with one hand I don't think, but disconnect that and pass it around, and you see there's the Boss down there. I'm just going to place it in there. Here's that plug, let's take that down from here. There we go, 22mm spanner. I'll just undo that. It's the standard Lambda size, and I'm going to use 2 hands on it, just rip my knuckles open. That's the wideband Lambda out of there. I'm just going to place it on top of this. There we go, that's that there. Now I'm not going to actually attach it yet, because I need to take all these pipes down anyway. So it's just good to know that it's got space. It's going straight up to where it needs to go. One thing I didn't correctly do is the vacuum gauge connection. So this is a port at the back of the inlet manifold. This is going straight to my gauge, but instead of doing that, I need to splice this so that only the little line pressure here is going to the gauge, not the large volume of air, so you don't kill the gauge, I guess. So I'm going to splice this in. The other side of this is going to my blow-off valve, so it gives a good signal for my blow-off valve, which is this straight through part, which will be exactly what the inlet manifold sees, but you also see the same pressure at the gauge, but it will be slightly restricted. So you can see I've gone from the back of the inlet manifold kind of straight to the bar valve with the T, with this little restrictor bit, going to the gauge. So this is my bar valve. You can see that the kit actually came with some 4mm, which is still fine for using there. And then coming over here, I actually used some of this 3mm stuff going into the cabin. That'll be fine because it's got this restrictor actually inside the T-piece on this end anyway, so I don't see why you need a larger line than what's on the restrictor, so that's fine. And just this bit here, again, was this 3mm stuff. I'm going to upgrade it to the 4mm, just so that the bar valve gets a nice strong signal to operate from. Used for the wind, but this is the 4mm line. I actually put a new line in there. The zip tie there goes to the T-piece. 3 zip ties there. On the back of the manifold, there's a zip tie there. The fuel pressure regulator line, 2 zip ties here. This, I think, the 3mm line. Only the other thing in the engine bay to do is this one. Taking the old line off, the air filter, of course. You can see where it needs to go to. And now I've just put some tape over here, and I'm going to send it through this line because this is a heat-proof line, and it's well, it's got fiberglass on it. I don't want that going down here, so send that through there. Connect the ends up. Zip tie everything. Take my word for it, there's one down there. There's obviously zip tie there and the 4mm vacuum hose and this protective sleeve over it. I can just place the air filter back in place, and that's everything, at least inside the engine bay, done for vacuum lines. So I just need to do the one behind the boost gauge there. There's the zip tie on the boost gauge at the back there. And finally, this is what the boost gauge looks like when it's been turned on. See here, measuring nothing, of course, because the engine hasn't been started.